All right, man, peace. So, brothers, this is going to be the first in a series of videos that I'm going to be making pertaining to Mr. R. Kelly. And it's extremely important that I cover all of the components of this case in the way that I want to cover it and the way that, in my belief, it needs to be covered. Because, as I've told so many of you brothers who've been on my channel for a long enough period of time, you can't just pay attention to the scene. You have to pay attention to the scenery. Now, there are some components of the scenery that can be easily noticed and distinguished. There are other components that cannot be easily distinguished unless you have a trained mind. There are certain hints and clues that people are never going to be able to understand, even when they're right in front of their face, because they have not read up on the correct things and they do not know what truly galvanizes this society, that being the Babylonian Kemetic Mystery School system. I'll give you an example. Last July or August, I released a two-part video pertaining to Mr. Lisandro Guzman Feliz, the young man who was stabbed to death by the Trinitarios gang right outside of a bodega in the Bronx. And it was very clear to me that that was a sacrificial, ritualistic killing. Why do I say that? Because of the way in which he was murdered, the date and the time period in which he was murdered, and the way that it was broadcast all across the world. And I'm not trying to be insensitive to the young man who was killed, but people get killed in grisly fashions like that every day, all across America, all across the world. But for some reason, they chose to take that one case and broadcast it all across the world. That's how I knew that it was a ritualistic killing, and it was in veneration of Tammuz. It took place on the night before the summer solstice, which is the time period in which Tammuz was killed. For those of you who don't know who Tammuz is, spelled T as in Tom, A-M-M-U-Z, he is the sacrificial lamb of this world. He's the savior of this world. He's the quote-unquote Christ figure on the left-hand side, also known as Heru, or Adonis, or Attis, or Bacchus, etc. They killed that young man to commemorate what occurred with Tammuz, because the energy of Tammuz is what moves this society forward. He presides in contrast to the Christ of the Bible, but that's a whole other issue. The point being is this. Major stories that are broadcast all across the globe, like the murder of Lisandro Guzman Feliz, are meant to do so to instill a certain level of programming in the people. With that situation, it was to commemorate Tammuz unbeknownst to the people, and it inspired a response in the same vein as the aftermath of the death of Tammuz, where the women wept. There was actually a procession that went through one of the streets of the Bronx in which the people wept, and they held up symbols that actually seemed to deify the young man, as opposed to lend any credence to the belief that people were sorrowful for his actual individual death. People who never knew him, I'm sure, if he was looking on in the spirit world, he would have said, there are more people who care about me now that I'm dead than who ever even acted as if they cared about me while I was alive. Why am I saying all this? Because they're doing something very similar to R. Kelly right now. And once again, if you're not familiar with the Babylonian Mystery School system, or quote-unquote Greek or Roman mythology, you're not going to understand exactly what is transpiring. But R. Kelly is proverbial Orpheus. For those of you who don't know who Orpheus was, he was a demigod of music. He was the son of Apollo. He was the most talented and gifted musician and singer of his day. And he was so venerated that he was viewed as a god, and he was also one of the great teachers of the Bacchanalian Mystery School system, as well as the worship of the Mother Goddess. I'm sure that what I'm saying sounds very far-fetched, but for you brothers who've been on my channel for a very long time, you know that I go to great lengths to prove my point, which I will over the course of these videos pertaining directly to Mr. R. Kelly. I'm going to separate how I speak about this situation based on the subject matter. So I'm going to cover R. Kelly directly. I'm going to cover his women who are making the accusations. I'm going to cover his relationship with Aaliyah. And I'm also going to cover the backlash and the reason for the backlash and how it has a pagan mythological resonance. It's very important that cats understand this, because what is being done to R. Kelly right now, or what he really has necessitated be done to him, is based on what occurred to Orpheus, at least according to the quote-unquote mythological renderings back 3,000-4,000 years ago. And Orpheus is just another altar for Asar or Osiris or Bacchus or what have you. So brothers, please understand what I just stated is from the three-dimensional level of understanding. We're also going to address certain issues directly from a two-dimensional level of understanding, which for those of you who don't know is just basic take what we hear and take it at face value and just respond to what's said. So we're going to cover it from both angles. Of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Welcome to CBS this morning. We're going to begin with your big explosive interview with R.Kelly. Wow.
He had a lot to get off his chest, Nora.
Right.
He actually said he welcomed the opportunity to speak.
Right.
And boy, did we let him speak.
And everybody has switched their channels and turned on to us to see it this morning.
Let him speak.
And that's really all it's about. Because you could care less about the young females that he quote unquote victimized, because you know that that's going on all across America, especially with the most affluent men. For those of you who don't know, R. Kelly is an MK programmer. He's an MK handler, and he's also an MK asset. And for those of you who don't know what that term means, that means mind control programmed. And when I say mind control programmed, what that means is through years of sexual ritualistic abuse, torture, deprivation, psychological manipulation, his brain has been divvied up into a series of what they call alters or alter egos or split personalities that allow him to change how he views things, what he remembers, how he understands things. One of these psychological terms for it is DID, or dissociative identity disorder. It's also known as multiple personality disorder. M. Night Shyamalan did a very good film on this phenomenon a few years ago called Split. It's in reference to the split persona. Almost every high-profile celebrity in the entertainment industry has some form of multiple personality disorder from being put through those same regimens or that same process of sexual abuse from their childhood, sometimes from their infancy, sometimes satanic ritualistic abuse, so on and so forth, electroshock treatment, the list goes on and on. But I have little doubt, well, really there's no need to doubt it because R. Kelly himself has stated it, that he was sexually abused as a child.
So let's get right to it, because R. Kelly is breaking his silence about the sexual abuse charges that landed him in jail last month. The embattled R&B singer spoke with Gayle for nearly 80 minutes yesterday. It is an interview that you will see only on CBS this morning, and he says all the women now accusing him of physical and sexual abuse, he says all of them are lying.
That's what he says. Chicago prosecutors have charged Kelly with...
Let me say this. Do I believe that R. Kelly is lying about this situation? Yes, I do. He is a manipulator. He's an extremely talented, ethereally talented individual, phenomenal singer, songwriter, but he is also a sadist. There's no doubt about that. And brothers keep trying to bring up, why is it that the media is talking about R. Kelly and they're not talking about Harvey Weinstein, or they're not talking about Hugh Hefner? As so-called black men, it should already be understood that we're not going to be covered the same as the so-called Caucasian man or the so-called Caucasian Jew. That should already be understood. Okay? That's why we have to have our own media and our own think tanks and our own exchange of understandings and ideas. Because at the end of the day, the so-called black man is never going to be evaluated the same way as the other races or even the black woman, because the so-called black man is the threat. Nobody else is the threat. But getting back to R. Kelly, the fact that there have been prominent so-called Caucasian men who have done the same things that he's done does not absolve him of culpability. Okay, it's very important that cats understand this, because this situation and the condition that he suffers from is very pervasive, extremely pervasive, almost all-encompassing throughout the entertainment industry, also into the sports world as well. And there are children all over America and the world being sexually abused right now. And that condition is like a virus, because oftentimes they grow up and they become abusers themselves.
With 10 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse, authorities say 3 of the 4 alleged victims were underage when the suspected crimes happened. Kelly has pleaded not guilty. Sources tell CBS News federal and state authorities in at least 2 states, New York and Illinois, are now investigating a variety of allegations. The singer, as you know, has faced intense scrutiny for more than a decade now. It was reignited in January after the Lifetime
More than a decade? The singer has faced intense scrutiny for almost 3 decades, Gayle King. Remember, he married Aaliyah in like 1994, 1995. So, I mean, we're moving on towards the 3rd decade of allegations with R. Kelly. And let me say this also. You'll see this many times, especially with prominent entertainers, especially in the hip-hop world or the R&B world. That smoke emerging in front of their face as they smoke a cigar. Sometimes there will not even be a cigar or cigarette in front of their mouth, and you'll see smoke emerging from their mouth. That is a symbol that they are Luciferians. Okay, might sound far-fetched, but that is what that is a symbol of.
Docuseries Surviving R. Kelly featured interviews with 7 accusers and former members of...
Now you see here, even in the documentary, quote-unquote, Surviving R. Kelly, before they begin the TV show, they go through the left eye of R. Kelly, representing a portal into another dimension. The left eye, once again, is the eye of Hathor, or the eye of Aset. And for those of you brothers who are familiar with many of the hieroglyphics or the symbology of Kemet, remember that the triangle or the delta was also a symbol of the mother goddess, and that was also a symbol of the doorway from the physical world to the spiritual world.
Members of his inner circle. They all say that Kelly preys on vulnerable women and young girls.
I have very little doubt about that, because vulnerable women and young girls are the easiest to manipulate. They're the easiest to train. And when you hear, or when I've heard, many of the tactics and many of the techniques that R. Kelly uses to make sure that he can get his women into an appropriate state of obeisance, it's very clear that he's had some type of training. That's very obvious to me. And most of these artists get their training in Luciferian circles, where you'll have certain members of the CIA or what have you, who have also started many of these Luciferian cults in Hollywood or maintain them, teach them on how to break down their subjects.
I am surprised that you agreed to do it. Why are you sitting down with us today?
I'm very tired of all of the lies. I've been hearing things and seeing things on the blogs, and I'm just tired.
What are the...
Let's be for real, Robert. The reason why you're doing this interview is because you want to make sure, if you go to trial, that you can influence potential jurors.
What are the lies that you're hearing that disturb you most?
Oh my God, all of them. Got little girls trapped in the basement, helicopters over my house, trying to rescue someone that doesn't need rescuing because they're not in my house, handcuffing.
Of course they're not in your house, they're in a different house, they're in a different safe house.
And people, starving people. I have a harem, a cult. I don't even really know what a cult is, but...
You know what a cult is, brother. You know what the concept is. You might not know how to spell it, but you know the concept.
I know I don't have one,
Have you done anything that you regret? Have you done anything wrong?
Lots of things wrong when it comes to women that I apologize. But I apologize in those relationships. At the time I was in the relationships.
Have you broken any laws when it comes to women?
Absolutely not.
The 6...
R. Kelly, stop lying, brother. Before the interview, you told Gayle King you could not ask about Aaliyah. You married Aaliyah. So, according to the laws of this land, that was illegal because you lied about her age on the marriage certificate. So, that was illegal. So, let's not try to act like you've never done anything illegal.
The 6-part series interviewed 50 people, family members, your former tour manager, numerous women who all claim that you abused them. Were you saying everybody in that documentary was not telling the truth about you? Everybody?
Let me say this before R. Kelly answers. Are those people all telling the absolute truth? Absolutely not. Are they all telling lies? Absolutely not. Are they maybe putting some barbecue sauce on many of their testimonies to sensationalize it and make more money? Were there probably some crocodile tears? Sure. But there's no doubt in my mind that R. Kelly is an MK programmer. I said this very early on in the start of my channel. I remember when a certain brother came into my comment section when the story first broke about R. Kelly having a quote-unquote sex cult and those women being forced, quote-unquote forced, to eat his feces and things of that nature. That's a mechanism to break down your subject. That's what I mean when I try to tell you, brothers, is much deeper than what they're communicating on television. Right now, they're putting R. Kelly through an Orphic ritual. They're putting him through the ritual of Orpheus because of his massive talent. R. Kelly is an MK asset himself, and he's a victim himself. But they refuse to cover that aspect of him being the victim because right now he has to be the person who gets nailed to the cross.
If you really look at that documentary, which I'm sure you have,
I have.
Everybody said something bad about me.
Well, that's how the documentary was going to sell, brother. I mean, how else was it going to sell? They're going to come on TV and say he's the best musician of the last 30 years. He's the best R&B singer since since Marvin Gaye. They're not gonna say that.
Nobody said nothing good. They was describing Lucifer.
I wonder why you use that term, bro. Do you think that that term is applicable or no?
I'm not Lucifer. I'm a man. I make mistakes, but I'm not a devil, and by no means am I a monster.
I'm going to name...
Well, I'm not quite sure if you're a monster or a devil because I've never had any personal dealings with you, but all I can do is I can ascertain, based on the breadcrumbs that I left, that you are a Luciferian. But once again, I'm going to delve deeper into that in the epilogue of this video and many of the other videos.
I'm going to name the names. R.Kelly, your ex-wife, Kitty Jones, Lisa Van Allen, Lizette Martinez, Geronda Pace, Faith Rogers, Asante McGee. You're saying everything they said in that documentary about you is not true.
Let me say this also, brothers. If me or you were famous, I'm pretty sure that a documentarian could line up 10, 15, 20 chicks that we dealt with over the course of our past and get them to say bad things about us. The issue is that many of the things that are being said about R. Kelly are consistent and they have substance, meaning there are documents behind many of the allegations pertaining to R. Kelly. And for those of us like myself who can see things on a certain level that most people can't see things at, and when I say see things, I'm talking about many of his associations and his affinities, I know that there is definitely something going on with this cat right here. There's no doubt about it in my mind. And he's not the only one. He's just the one who's going to take the fall right now. Now, will they allow him to get off? Will they be able to prove their case in a court of law? We're going to find out. But it's not so much about that as much as what's going on here. They're also going to parlay that into the quote-unquote Me Too movement, as well as being able to use this to promote the already widening gap between the so-called black man and the so-called black woman. You understand that? All black men just want to do is hold you in basements and molest you and beat you and things of that nature. So they're going to parlay this into that.
True. They are lying on me.
Why would these women say the same thing about you? That you are controlling, that you are abusive, that you tell women when to eat, when to go to the bathroom, when they can sleep, where they can dress.
Let me also say this. Those women did all make those allegations. But that's R. Kelly utilizing the power that they've divested to him. Power is a fetish for him. So the reason why R. Kelly is incredulous is because basically he's saying there's nowhere in any of those parts of that 6-part documentary where any female claimed that I grabbed her, threw her in my trunk, and drove her to my mansion and made her stay when she did not want to stay. Every female that wanted to leave got up and left when they wanted to. The issue is that they were so enraptured by his image and by his aura and what emanated from him that they were willing to live out many of the fantasies that he sings about in his songs. And, you know, when that energy starts to wear off and dissipate, as it does, almost unerringly in these relationships, period, not just with R. Kelly, but just period, then they started to notice the abusive aspect more than the sexual fetish aspect. R. Kelly really sees nothing wrong with what he does. His attitude is, yes, I chain up a bitch. Yes, I'll whip a bitch. Yes, I'll bend her over and make her eat my feces, but it's only after she agrees to it. So how can I be the wrong person here? It must be them. It's not my fault that they wake up a week down the line and say, what am I doing? You're disgusting. You agreed to it. That's his attitude.
Why would all these women tell these different stories about you if they were not true? And they don't know each other. That defies logic to me.
Right. Until you hear the explanation. You can start a rumor on a guy like me or a celebrity just like that. All you have to do is push a button on your phone and say, so-and-so did this to me. R. Kelly did this to me. And if you get any traction from that, if you're able to write a book from that, if you're able to get a reality show, then any girl that I had a relationship in the past that it just didn't work out, she can come and say the same exact thing.
Are you blaming this on social media?
I'm talking about the power of social media.
I partially agree with the brother that with social media and other forms of information exchange, that innuendo and false narratives can get propagated far more proficiently than they could 25 years ago. But the problem is we were hearing that same shit about you 25 years ago without social media, bro. So, I mean, it's difficult for me to buy that when we heard the same things 25 years ago that we're hearing today.
In 2008, R.Kelly was found not guilty on 14 counts of child pornography after prosecutors in Chicago failed to convince a jury that he was a man seen in a sex tape with a girl as young as 13.
What do you want to say to your fans?
Last month, Kelly was indicted again, this time charged with aggravated...
R.Kelly was in court watching that video like, I don't know who that man is on tape, but he sure is lucky.
criminal sexual abuse of 4 women.
Now, I don't know if you guys can see this when you watch this screen here. Of course, R. Kelly, his mugshot is in the center, but just to the right, they have a split screen of his face, and they're just showing his left eye, his left side. So once again, this is a ritual to really show and exalt that this society is moving towards the veneration of the mother goddess.
Including 3 who the charges say were minors at the time. Have you ever had sex with anyone under the age of...
Damn, you ain't even let her finish. You gotta let her finish first before you answer the question, bro.
Age of 17?
No.
Never?
No.
I have to tell you, it's so hard to believe that based on all the
I'm gonna tell you something, Gail. There's one thing. I'm gonna tell you something.
What the women said about you.
What women said about me. What women. So nobody's allowed to be mad at me and be scorned and lie on me.
So they're lying on you. That's your explanation. They're lying on you.
Absolutely.
Gail, absolutely. Because when a woman's fed up...
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You feel that people have maligned your character?
I have been assassinated. I have been buried alive. But I'm alive.
Now, brothers, did you hear that statement that R. Kelly just made? That's an allusion to the Orphic mysteries. Orpheus actually had to go to the underworld to retrieve his maiden by the name of Eurydice and try to bring her back. It's also an allusion to the Bacchus, who also was killed. He was dismembered, but he was brought back to life. He did not just say that just to say that. He made that statement on purpose because he's aware of the ritual that he's being put through right now.
So I think the point you're making is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you have never held anybody against their will.
I don't need to.
Why did he do that for? I'm R. Kelly. Yeah, there's certain women that like to come over to my place and they prefer to get shackled like they're going to prison. You know, we both get turned on by it, get freaky, I get coconut oil. I mean, shit, none of your business.
Why would I?
Well,
how stupid would it be for R. Kelly, with all I've been through in my way past,
like last week,
to hold somebody, let alone 4, 5, 6, 50, you said. How stupid would I be to do that?
Gail, why would I do some shit like that? I mean, you got to be shit. That's like you coming to interview me with a wig on your head. Why would you do that?
I didn't say you were holding...
That's stupid, guys. Is this camera on me?
Yes.
All the cameras on you, brother. You don't got to worry about that.
That's stupid. Use your common sense. Don't forget.
Well, you know what? Most people don't have sense. So I don't like to use that term common sense. You really have to use your discernment.
Forget the blogs. Forget how you feel about me. Hate me if you want to. Love me if you want. But just you.
I don't hate you, brother. I feel pity for you. Because you were put through certain rituals and certain procedures that have you bugged out of your mind. Just like just about everybody else in the entertainment industry. I mean, you can go through the names. They have all been sexually abused. They've all been just about satanically, ritually abused. They cannot get to that level where they're at in the entertainment industry, especially in the singing world, unless they've been put through that protocol, especially in the singing world. Because as I've told you brothers before, the god of the singing world and the entertainment industry is the Bacchus. Okay? Bacchus is the god of revelry, of wine. He's also bisexual and transgendered. Okay? He's a pansexual. But we'll be covering that a little bit later. But that's the entity that they worship, Bacchus, Pan, and the mother goddess. and the various aspects of that quote-unquote triune or triumvirate or whatever you want to call it. Behind closed doors, that's what they adhere to.
Use your common sense. How stupid would it be for me to, with my crazy past and what I've been through, oh, right now I just think I need to be a monster and hold girls against their will, chain them up in my basement, and don't let them eat and don't let them out unless they need some shoes down the street from their uncle.
This nigga sound like he doing Trapped in the Closet Volume 74.
Stop it. Y'all quit playing. Quit playing. I didn't do this stuff. This is not me. I'm fighting for my life.
Fighting for my fucking life. I'm here trying to be serious, and Gayle King here with that low-cut blouse got me thinking all type of freaky thoughts.
Y'all killing me with this. I gave y'all 30 years of my career.
Robert.
30 years of my career.
You're about to do another 30 years. You say you gave people 30 years of your career. You about to give people another 30 years. Except it's going to be in a damn penitentiary. I hope that whatever ritual you're going through, that for your sake, if you meant to make it through, that you're thankful if you make it through. Because the way that things are lining up with this Me Too shit and how they're trying to shift everything over to worshiping the woman and the feminine principle, they're probably going to use you as a sacrifice, bro. We'll see.
Y'all trying to kill me. You're killing me, man. This is not about music. I'm trying to have a relationship with my kids, and I can't do it. Y'all just don't want to believe the truth.
Some of you cats might remember one of R. Kelly's children is a transgender as well. And he came out against that choice. And of course, his quote-unquote baby mother, Andrea Kelly, she stepped in to try to quell the whole thing. Once again, the liberal woman is fully in favor of the homosexual movement, the transgender movement, etc.
You don't want to believe it.
At this point, we briefly pause the interview.
Now, if you look at R. Kelly's handler, his handler is smirking right there. So this whole thing was coordinated. It's very obvious that R. Kelly is trying to win an Academy Award.
Interview to give Kelly a moment. His publicist helped calm him down.
I hope this camera keep going.
No, we're gonna.
This is not true. This is not, doesn't even make sense. Why would I hold all these women? Their mothers and fathers told me, we're gonna destroy your career.
But Kelly's emotions.
Well, bro, I would think that if those women's mothers and fathers told you those things, that you would have electronic records, not only of what they told you, but also the money that they demanded from you.
Remained raw.
It's real.
So I expect that to come out in court when the time comes.
It's real girls out there missing. It's real young girls out there being abducted.
Take my word for it. I get text messages and alerts about it every day. I get all type of photos and pictures every day. Take my word for it. They're getting abducted.
Being raped, okay? They really are on chains. They really do have chains on their wrists, and they can't get out.
Don't tell me why I know that or how I know. I'm just telling you I know.
Robert, and they're ending up buried in deep.
Robert, we have to have a conversation. Really, I don't want you just ranting at the camera.
I came here for them to hear me talk. But I need help.
What kind of help?
Psychological help. Wouldn't mind getting a little pussy. I mean, to be honest with you. But right now, I need just some help, please. Because somebody haven't paid my lawyer fees.
This is the kind of help I need.
Yes, what kind of help?
I need somebody to help me not have a big heart. Because my heart is so big. People betray me, and I keep forgiving them.
You sound like you're playing the victim here.
Well, if you're playing the victim, you should be very well aware and acclimated to people playing the victim, Gayle King, because, I mean, shit. Every year, the award for best victim playing should go to women in America. You guys play the biggest victim role of anybody on planet Earth. If you let women in America or women in the Western civilization tell you, they get treated worse than anybody, especially the liberal black woman. And she has advantages in almost every facet of this society. And y'all still play the victim role. So if R. Kelly wants to play the victim role, I guess he's just copying you.
You sound like R. Kelly, you do. When I listen to you,
I'm
it
just
does
telling
sound
the
like
truth.
you're playing the victim
I'm just
card.
telling the truth. And the reason I'm emotional,
Robert,
and I apologize for that, is because this is the first time I was able to say something. I've said nothing.
Gail, you remained tough and calm throughout that.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't do any good if we both got hysterical. Or
Of course, because you had to maintain your composure because you yourself are an MK handler. For those of you brothers who don't know, Gail King is twin program with Oprah Winfrey. And again, I'm sure some basic people are going to be on here. What are you talking about? What's this program? What are you talking? Don't worry about it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But Gail King is twin program with Oprah. She's also one of Oprah's handlers. All right. Allegedly. Well, that's how she is. So she is she's accustomed to being calm around assets. R. Kelly is an asset. He's also a programmer and a handler himself. But he only knows how to handle young girls. He doesn't really know how to handle. When I say handle, I mean really manipulate and walk them through the different stages and procedures. Now, it can also work on older, more experienced females, but they have to be more mentally fractured. People who are raised in healthier environments, it's going to be very difficult to put them under any form of programming or mind control. So that's why he concentrates on the younger girls, because their brains are still in the formative stages. It has nothing to do with, oh, R. Kelly can't deal with a strong woman. All that's bullshit. Most of these women ain't strong, period. This society's behind most of them. That's why they can act like they so damn strong. But with the younger girls, their brains are still in a formative stage where he can be much more influential on them. The older females are pretty much just trying to live out a momentary fantasy where they get to have sex with R. Kelly and then they can move on to their little 9-hour-a-day job and go home and drink their wine and finger pop themselves. But they all really just want to have a one-night stand with R. Kelly. The young girls, he could seduce them into wanting to be his nymphs. And that goes back to the theme of Orpheus. The young girls are his nymphs, but I'll be covering that in another video.
or if we both got very emotional, and you could see he felt that in his mind everybody's lying. I said, but there's so many people who are telling the same story, and he kept going back. I said, but the women don't know each other. And he said, how do you know if they don't know each other? On social media, you're connected. He thinks
I'm sure that those women have spoken amongst each other, or when they were filming the documentary, that they spoke amongst each other and compared notes. But I don't think that they all came to the same conclusion that they're all going to tell the same story. Now, do I believe that R. Kelly to a degree has been set up by some of the women? Of course, but there are just too many, and too many females who have not spoken out, who have alluded to going through or being prompted to go through the same rituals or the same protocols or the same programs as these other women, for there to not be some substance to what's being alleged.
everybody's trying to do a book deal, or they're trying to do a movie.
Well, they are trying to do a book deal, especially that Van Allen chick. She's definitely trying to do a book.
And that really people are conspiring against him.
I have to say,
Well, that's partly true, but he's put himself in that position.
I've never seen anything like that. I don't know how that went on for over an hour and a half.
R. Kelly is a performer. R. Kelly gets on stage for an hour and a half and sings at the top of his lungs. You think that he has an issue creating some tears or getting up and gesticulating wildly, things of that nature? That's nothing to him.
What was he like before the interview? Because you didn't really know him that well.
No, I don't. I mean, in fairness, he didn't rant for the whole hour and a half, but he got very emotional several times. I met him maybe beyond 5 years ago at a party where you just say, hi, how are you?
You just say, hi, how are you? Would you like to follow me to the bathroom? But he said no, so.
You know, it's not the time to say, remember we met 5 years ago? I hate it when people do that. So I did ask, can we have a conversation before the interview got started? I wanted to say, we're going to give you a platform to say whatever you want to say. It's no secret that he lives at Trump Tower in Chicago. So we went to his apartment there, and we had a conversation. And you walk into his apartment, there's a big welcome home. There's a Christmas tree that he keeps up all year long since his mother died back in 1993. He's very close to his mother.
That's part of the issue with R. Kelly. R. Kelly is still a perpetual boy. And that was one of the pseudonyms of Bacchus, that he was the perpetual boy. Also with the Tsar, or Ra, really, when he came back as Heru, or Harpocrates. Heru the boy. He's still thinking about his mother. His mother clearly made a very indelible impact on his life, as did all the other females in his household. His brain is all messed up over that. That's why it's so important for brothers to preside over the raising of their sons. And the main way that we do that is to not impregnate thotties and $2 hoes. You can only really impregnate a wife material woman if you want a child who's going to be, who's going to be strong mentally and spiritually. And it's very difficult to find those types of females, but I mean, you have nothing but time. You have to be patient. If not, you get broken. You get broken individuals like an R.Kelly. No disrespect to the brother, super duper talented, but it's very obvious that outside of the music world, he's a broken individual.
Mother misses her very much because it was her favorite holiday. So he keeps the Christmas tree up all year long. It was like 90 degrees in there because he was resting his voice. He said he was going to be singing later.
But what he is accused of is dastardly.
Exactly.
Raping young girls repeatedly over decades.
Well, how you said it would imply that R. Kelly was holding down young girls and forcing them to have sex. Really, what R. Kelly's being accused of is statutory rape of certain females. The vast majority of females, even in the documentary, were of legal age. They just joined in to say that R. Kelly wanted them to be a part of a sexual cult. That's really why they made waves. Other than that, they just some bitter broads, and they come a dime a dozen. But as we can see, this person, Nora O'Donnell, is trying to create some inflammatory energy around the accusations.
And I think what you did, Gail, was allow him to tell his story and to see, though, his behavior, his temperament, is, I think, what is probably what is most revealing of this interview as well. Well,
let's be for real. R. Kelly for the last 35 years has been in a bubble because of his super creativity. He's been venerated as a god of music, as a proverbial Orpheus. He's unaccustomed to being criticized or being called out for his conduct. So, of course, he's going to respond like a small boy.
The pounding of the fist, the getting up. I was worried about you.
Oh, bitch, please.
I was actually worried about you when I saw the pictures.
Yeah, you thought R. Kelly was going to beat her down in the interview? That's another way to try to demonize or give a bestial nature to the so-called black man. Once again, brothers, the liberal woman, no matter what they are, whether they be so-called black like Gayle King or red as hell like this creature right here, Ronald McDonald, they're not your friend, man.
Well, it's funny. Favorite son, favorite daughter, and Oprah all called me and said, "Were you afraid? Did you think he was going to hit you?" I actually never thought that. I think that I thought I might get accidentally clobbered, but I didn't think that he would deliberately try to hurt me.
That man wasn't trying to hit you, Gayle King. All the man was trying to do was make a big show of things.
Never felt in danger talking to him. I just felt that he had a lot of emotion. He wanted to release it. And, when it was all over, we had a conversation, we said goodbye, and I think at the end of the day, he was glad that he was able to say what he wanted to say.
Okay.
But it's hard to believe when you say, Robert, there are so many allegations and so many accusations, and you've never had sex with anybody under the age of 17.
And it took this jury less than a day to deliberate.
Yes, exactly right.
There's more, right?
And he says more will come out on his side of the story, too.
And we have more this
yes, we do. In our next...
I believe that there will be some factoids that come out on the side of R. Kelly, particularly pertaining to many of these women. I mean, I'm not quite sure if they're aware quite what they're getting into, especially these characters like Asante McGee and Van Allen. I'm sure that R. Kelly is going to spend money out the wazoo to dig up as much information as he can about those females. Okay, so now this is going to be the continuation of the Gayle King R. Kelly interview.
We have much more of our interview with R. Kelly addressing his current relationship with two young women.
His nymphs.
23-year-old Joycelyn Savage and 21-year-old Azriel Clary live with him at his Chicago home. Their parents believe that the 52-year-old R&B singer has brainwashed their daughters. The Clary's attorney released a statement calling Kelly a liar.
Now, brothers, I want you to pay very close attention to this person right here. His name is Michael Avenatti. He's, he's one of these lawyers in the entertainment industry who they use to basically harass or jump on board of any super liberal issue. You may have seen him in reference to many of the allegations pertaining to President Trump. I want you to pay very close attention to the thumbnail here of Michael Avenatti on his Twitter. He's only showing the left eye. Okay? Once again, he is a venerator of the Mother Goddess. That's why he's allowed on television to play a prominent role. Twitter in and of itself is a mind control mechanism. That's why they use the bluebird as the symbol of Twitter. For those of you brothers who've ever done any research into MK Ultra or the mind control program, you'll know that it was known by a few names, before it became known as MK Ultra. One of those names was Project Chatter, and another one was Project Bluebird. Okay, but once again, pay attention to how he decides to frame his own face on his Twitter page. The right side of his face is darkened, only the left side is illuminated, and you can only see his left eye. He's a venerator of the Mother Goddess, and he's probably an MK asset himself.
Liar, manipulator, and sociopath.
Let me also say this. There were allegations about him and his woman, or a woman, a month or so ago, where he was alleged to have gotten into a domestic disturbance with a woman. Maybe he was trying to train her.
Later this morning, Savage's parents plan to hold a news conference addressing our interview. But here's what Kelly told us about the two young women. What is your relationship with them?
I love them, and it's like they're my girlfriends. It's like, you know, we have a relationship.
And let me say this, ain't nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a man having more than one woman, long as you understand what the repercussions of that can be. There's nothing, quote unquote, immoral about that. A lot of people get upset when that information comes out, or when I say that, oh wow. Now, the way in which he's doing it, by utilizing psychological ploys and tricks and things of that nature to beat the woman down mentally, that's no bueno.
It's real. And I know guys, like, I've known guys all my life to have 5 or 6 women. Okay, so don't go there on me, okay, because that's the truth.
The fact that they're much younger than you.
I don't look.
Who gives a shit how much younger they are? Are they legal? That's what matters. First, your issue was that they were illegal. Now the issue is that they're much younger than him. That's why I told you brothers a long time ago that the Me Too movement is really just the revenge of the old and quickly expiring bitches. That's all it is. The old, ugly, quickly expiring bitches. They're very upset that they played the feminist card all throughout their youth. Now they're older and they have to put on layers and layers of makeup, 5 or 6 wigs on top of their damn head, a push-up bra, Spanx, and panties that lift their butt up just to walk outside the street, just to walk outside their house with a sense of a self-image or self-esteem, and still ain't nobody looking at them. So they get upset when they see a man like R.Kelly, who's been a quote-unquote heartthrob for the last 25 years, seeking out women 19, 20 years old, when their attitude is, you're 52, how come you don't want a 52-year-old woman? That's never been the case with men, that they were looking for a broad 50-something years old. Now, if that happens to come, then it comes. In this society, men are discouraged from dealing with women who are in their physical prime, if they themselves are 45, 50, 55 years old. But it's always been the case that younger women have been attracted to older men. Sometimes younger women want men their own age. Sometimes, women who are 30 years old, they want 30 or 35-year-old men. You also have women out here, and the media never talks about this, who are 30 years old and who are seeking after young boys, especially in the educational system. But that never makes the news for some reason.
I don't look at much younger than me. I just look at legal.
Agreed. But let me say this. Agreed from the standpoint of possible punitive damages. In this society, brothers, look, I'm not trying to digress from this video too much, but in this society, females 30, 35 years old are not particularly mature, much less one that's 18 years old. So, I'm not quite sure exactly what you're going to get out of an 18-year-old female who is, who's inexperienced at life and who's never been trained really on how to be a wife or anything like that. Other than sex. But in this society, women who are 35 years old, that's pretty much all you're going to get from the majority of them also. Are they good women out here? Of course, definitely. But you have to be able to distinguish between the concubine and the wife material woman.
I just look at you, I me. Now, I don't know if you're married. I don't know. I don't know if you had a relationship. I don't know what I don't know.
I don't know if you got a man. I remember at that party 5 years ago, I almost got the draw. So, I don't want to say nothing.
But one might be older than the other. One might be younger than the other. Okay? So, I just look at legal. Okay? People, there are.
And supposedly Gayle King was dating Cory Booker. Now, Gayle King is in her mid-60s. Cory Booker ain't in his mid-60s. So it was okay for her to date a man who was 20 years younger than her?
There are older men that like younger women,
Is that
there
true?
are younger women that like older men.
Are you an older man that likes younger women?
I'm an older man that love all women.
I'm an older man that like all pussy.
Okay. Kelly says he met Joycelyn Savage after her father brought her to one of his concerts when she was 19.
I didn't go looking for a Jocelyn Savage. I was
on stage. I turn around. I said, shit. I smell some type of vagina that can't be no older than 19 years old. I could smell it. I said, oh my goodness sakes. Good golly, Miss Molly.
I was doing my show. He brought her and asked a friend of mine to put her on the stage with R.Kelly. Make sure she's on the stage.
Azriel Clary also met Kelly at one of his concerts. Her parents say Kelly pulled the then 17-year-old on stage back in 2015. They say they had hoped that she would become Kelly's musical protege. Azriel Clary, what is your relationship with her?
Right now,
Oh, we fucking. I'm sorry, can I say that on TV? Yeah. I mean, we're having intercourse. Repeatedly.
seeing her.
You were seeing her?
Yeah, she's 21. I'm seeing her.
She's 21.
Yeah.
But did you start seeing her at 17?
Absolutely not.
Did you have sex with her when she was 17?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Although her parents wanted me to.
No, her parents claim they have text messages that show that you had sex with her.
Let me say this. There are many parents, quote unquote parents, who sex traffic their child into the entertainment industry. So am I disputing R. Kelly's version of how he came across Azriel Clary or the other chick, Jocelyn Savage? No, I am not. I have very little doubt that if it did not happen according to how he says it, that that it happens repeatedly in the entertainment industry with both young girls and young boys who get sold into the industry by their parents. It happens all the time. As a matter of fact, that's how they get turned out.
When she was 17.
Claim.
So you're saying you did not have sex with her when she was 17?
Absolutely not.
You are with two women right now. You love them. They say they love you. What kind of love is it that keeps these young women away from their families? Their families are saying...
These.
I'm talking right now about Jocelyn
because you
and
know
Azriel.
I'm going to answer your question.
What kind of love is that?
What kind of father? What kind of mother will sell...
He had to pause for a second while he thought of some bullshit. Let me rewind this back.
Sell they...
women away from their families. Their families are saying...
These.
I'm talking right now about Jocelyn
because you
and
know
Azriel.
I'm going to answer your question.
What kind of love is that?
What kind of father? What kind of mother will sell their daughter to a man?
Who did that?
How come it was okay for me to see them until they wasn't getting no money from it? Why would you take your daughter, if I were going to take my daughter and she's 19 years old to a 49-year-old icon, whatever, celebrity or R. Kelly concert or whoever it is, I'm not going to put her on the stage and leave her. I'm going to take her to the concert. Their father is more into my music and know about my music than they do.
You're saying the parents handed their daughters, Azriel and Jocelyn, over to you? Is that...
Gayle King, he just said that shit 3 minutes ago. Are you paying attention? Why don't you have somebody pull that wig back into a ponytail so you can hear better?
Is that what you're saying to us?
Absolutely. Are the cameras still going?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, Gayle King. I mean, shit, is the Pope a Catholic? Yeah. Absolutely. They sold their daughters to me. And I'm keeping them. I got the receipt.
Wow. Yeah.
I know you suggesting that the parents sold the daughters to him?
Brothers, this is why I get on these silly broads on the morning news. And I told you guys this when that Harvey Weinstein bullshit first came out, that what they really want to do is they want to turn the morning news into Women Central, where you look at your news anchors as women and subconsciously you start to trust or believe in the observations of women, which oftentimes are frivolous and many times they have a hard time understanding exactly what's going on. The cat said 3 different times that the parents sold the daughters to him. In other words, the agreement was tacitly, we're going to give you our daughters, and the agreement is you're going to give us money back and you're also going to make her a star. That's all he said, and he said it pretty plainly 2 or 3 times.
He is saying that the parents are in it for the money, is what he's saying. He is saying that both sets of parents,
and that yes, they sold their daughters to him,
brought the daughters to him in hopes that they would work together, and that the parents could do a deal with them, that maybe the daughters could work. I mean, he tells a very different story. I talked to Azrael's father the night before the interview. He very much believes that his daughter's been brainwashed. He says
he's right. His daughter has been brainwashed.
He says his daughter loves to sing, and that's how she got involved with R.Kelly.
But I would suspect that one of the reasons why it was so easy for his daughter to get brainwashed is that she had psychological issues before she met R.Kelly, which would imply in my mind that it's a very high possibility that his daughter was molested by someone. Not saying him per se, but his daughter was probably molested by someone before she even came across R.Kelly.
He says he has text messages that prove they had sex when she was 17. And so, you know, there's all sorts of court cases going on. It really is, Nora, I have to say, hot mess all the way around on all sides.
Yeah, a lot like you guys make up. Look, at the end of the day, and certain people might not like this, but they keep trying to accentuate that he had sex with her when she was 17. Well, I have news for you. Most of these broads in America are losing their virginity at an age way younger than 17. So are you upset at the age in which he had sex with her, or are you upset that she lost her virginity at 17? Because all of a sudden, we're supposed to be so outraged that a female lost her virginity at 17. Most of these broads out here are losing their virginity at 12, 13, 14 years old. It just happens to be that the person that they lost their virginity to is normally a young boy of around that same age. So is the issue that you're upset that she lost her virginity, or is it that she lost her virginity, or pardon me, that she had sex with a man who was way older than her, because he probably was not the one who took her virginity? And that gets back to my other point, because supposedly R.Kelly was suicidal from a previous relationship. And one would think that she was probably suicidal because she had invested so much of her spirit into some other boy, and one would assume that they were having sex. So was the boy wrong for having sex with her, presumably? Or is R.Kelly wrong and not the boy? I mean, which one? We got to clear up the story here so that we know exactly what to be upset about.
On all sides.
And Jocelyn's parents, as we mentioned, are going to be holding a press conference.
Yes, they are holding a press conference later today. It'll be interesting to hear what they have to say.
And the point of the parents holding all these press conferences is that once they're able to get their daughters back, they can parlay a lot of the exposure that they're getting into another record deal somewhere else.
But we also talked to Jocelyn and R.Kelly about living with R.Kelly.
But anyway, we'll cover that in another video with Jocelyn and R.Kelly. So peace. Okay, so now, brothers, this is going to be a very brief epilogue, just illustrating some of the components of R. Kelly's character archetype in the entertainment industry. As I've stated in many of the videos that I've done on this topic, on this narrative, he is proverbial Orpheus, the quote-unquote demigod of music, also known as Pan. Certain brothers may say to themselves, what is he talking about? Orpheus and Pan are 2 separate entities. No, not really. Actually, they're different aspects of the same entity in the ancient world, that being Nimrod and or his father Cush. Oftentimes there's an amalgamation between Ham, Cush, Nimrod, and Adam from the pre-diluvial or the antediluvial world. All of those components make up many of the quote-unquote mythological figures. When it comes to R. Kelly, he is the quote-unquote music demigod, as I've already stated. And that's the main reason why he was tapped to create the iconic song I Believe I Can Fly for Michael Jordan's MKUltra film Space Jam. Space Jam was basically meant to be a modernized version of The Wizard of Oz or Alice in Wonderland, something of that nature. That's why you see the various components of those films mixed in with Space Jam. Michael Jordan was or is an MK asset, and he went through the ritual of being taken from the physical world to the quote-unquote fantasy world or spirit world, and he had to be led there by the quote-unquote white rabbit, that being Bugs Bunny. The song I Believe I Can Fly was basically the Space Jam version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. That was the song that led Dorothy to disassociate and be able to go from the physical world to the spirit world through the vortex. In the case of Space Jam, Michael went down the rabbit hole. Once again, songs like I Believe I Can Fly, for people who are under the programming, assist them in being transported to another quote-unquote reality or to another plane. As we can see here, this is a still shot from the video for I Believe I Can Fly. And for those of us who've done any research into the MK Ultra program, especially the component known as beta programming or the sex slave aspect of the Monarch or MK Ultra program, you'll know that normally one of the indicators of the beta program is that the assets wear animal print, specifically the leopard print, but there are other forms of animal print that they wear. As we can see, R. Kelly's wearing the zebra print pants and the snakeskin jacket or coat. He is an MK asset. He is a sex slave. As he's already attested to, he's been molested for the majority of his life, starting from his childhood. But once you get into the craft or into the quote-unquote witch coven known as the entertainment industry, the molestation continues. Because I consider having to have sex with music executives, that's molestation because that's against your will. But after a while, after continuous, ongoing years of sexual ritualistic abuse, so on and so forth, the asset is unable to differentiate between what they're doing willingly as opposed to what they're doing because they have to do it. Believe me, R. Kelly has had as much adulteration done to him as he's done to others. Okay? Allegedly. But proverbially speaking, he is Orpheus or Pan of the entertainment industry. And both of those entities were notable not only for their overly lustful aspect, but also for their musical prowess. Here's another still shot from the I Believe I Can Fly video. He's wearing the zebra print shirt, and he's out there in the woodlands, i.e. like the god Pan, the quote-unquote god Pan, or Orpheus or Bacchus or what have you. He's playing a microcosm of those entities. This is a photo that I went over, I believe, in one of the Cardi B videos. As we can see, R. Kelly is sitting in between the legs of this model. I believe her name is Irina Shayk. And some people might assert that this is a very sexualized photo. And partially it is, because the female model is playing Parvati, the quote-unquote Hindu god of lust, the Hindu version of Aphrodite. But R. Kelly's not really being sexual in this photo here. He's supposed to represent her son, Heru. That's why he's sitting in between her legs, because he has proceeded forth from in between her legs. And his head is right there because they want you to focus on his head, and his head is right in front of her vagina. In other words, what's implied is that you should be focusing on her vagina, because the vagina is the divine portal or the divine doorway of the mother goddess, represented by the triangle or the delta. The proof that this model is representative of the mother goddess is when you look at her face. They're only showing her left eye, the eye of Hathor. Now, brothers, look at this still shot right here. This is from a magazine cover that R. Kelly did many years ago. As we can see, the right hand is up, the left hand is down. The right index finger is pointing upward. Of course, it's touching on his temple. The left index finger is pointing downward. As above, so below. Baphomet, Hermetic principles. Let's look at the inlay here. It says R. Kelly in yellow print for the sun. Underneath it, it says Blue Magic. Right? R. Kelly, Blue Magic. What is that in reference to? That's in reference to R. Kelly being considered a quote-unquote blue witch, i.e. a good witch. It's also for the Blue Masonic Lodges, the first 3 levels or first 3 stages of Blue Lodge Masonry. R. Kelly's letting you know he's a quote-unquote Master Mason, a.k.a. a Master Luciferian or Master Witch. That is why it says Blue Magic. Once again, one hand up, one hand down. As above, so below. He's a venerator of the quote-unquote Baphomet. Now, this photo is very interesting because, as we can see, it appears as if, at least at that time, R. Kelly and Jay-Z were being put through Gemini or twin programming. 2 halves make one whole. The goal, of course, is to conquer the world. That is the meaning of that little globe in between them and the cities in between them. On the part of Jay-Z, or on the side of Jay-Z, is New York. On the side of R. Kelly is Chicago. So it says unfinished business. They have to take over the world. Two halves of one whole. They were twinned at that time. And for many brothers who remember that time period, the hip-hop industry was very desperate to get these two to work together and to make their partnership work. And it was fated to not work. But it's very apparent just by looking at this photograph here that they were put through some form of twin programming, at least at this time period. Now, I wanted to compare the previous photo of R. Kelly and Jay-Z to this photo, and the fact that it just reinforces my point on a multitude of levels. As we saw in the previous photo, they had half of R. Kelly's face just showing his left eye, half of Jay-Z's face just showing his right eye. In this photo right here, we have half of Bugs Bunny's face, the white rabbit, the quote-unquote spirit guide that led Michael Jordan through the looking glass or down the rabbit hole into a whole nother plane of existence. We just see Michael Jordan's right eye to signify what? As I've told you brothers in other videos, his character is meant to represent Heru, or the prince of the power of the air. That's why he got the nickname Air Jordan. When the scriptures tell us about the prince of the power of the air is the mother goddess, because she was likened unto the holy aspect of the air, that being the quote-unquote Holy Spirit, or the dove. The dove in the pagan mythologies was represented by the mother goddess. So the prince of the power of the air, or the prince of the air, or the prince of the dove, is who? Is Cupid, or Harpocrates, or Heru. So once again, that is how Michael Jordan was able to get that name. And that's how that witch coven, known as Nike, was able to, or Nike, which also once again is a name for the mother goddess, was able to take him and utilize him for everything that they could get out of him. R. Kelly is in the middle. He represents the bridge between Bugs Bunny, quote unquote, and Michael Jordan. He's also there as a handler or a watcher. Notice he's dressed in all black for Saturnian principles. It says, R. Kelly, I believe I can fly. Once again, I believe I can fly is in an orangish, yellowish color for the sun. So once again, brothers, that's basically it on that. We'll see where this whole R. Kelly issue goes. So peace.